So in the last lecture we discussed the how we can start from the code and connect with the database, create that database automatically. That was the code first approach. And today we will talk about the database first approach. In the database first approach, I have just opened that what you can say that Visual Studio, and in the left side we have that server. So here we come to the data connection, and then we say that we want to create a new connection. And before we can do that, we need to have the SQL Server Express, SQL Server Express. Okay, so what does that mean? So we have say SQL Express, and we want to select and we want to create a new database. So we say that uh, I will let you know that how we can install that thing. There's a link that you can just download that SQL Server Express, and then you can install on your PC. And then we also have the what you can say that we have that particular specific studio SQL Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So I will give you the links. I will put all those links on the Moodle, so you can download that SQL Server Express, as well as you can download that SQL Server Management Studio, in which you can see that particular specific connection. So first of all, let me start. So we say that dot SQL Express, and let me confirm this thing, SQL Server Management, that I am writing the same exact name that is present in my database. So, okay, so I'm just starting that SQL Server Management Studio, and here we need to give it like DBFirst demo. So that's a demo that we are going to use here. Where is my okay, anyway, so let's see that if it is working or not. If it's not, then we will see that if there is something else is required. SQLExpress, I suppose. Yeah, that's fine. We click on OK. Once first we are trying to make a connection. Actually, here we are making a connection with the SQLExpress installation of the SQL Server, and then we are creating a database. So because this particular specific database does not exist, so or you don't have a permission, would you like to attempt to create it? So it's because that particular specific database does not exist in our system, so it say that this does not exist, or you don't have the permission to access it, and we know that this particular specific database does not exist in our system or in our SQL Server Express. So we want to create it. I say yes, I want to create that particular specific database, and it will appear that particular specific connection here. So you can see that here. So we have this particular specific connection, and if we go and see that there is nothing inside the tables, because we have not created any kind of a table. So what I will do now here, so I will just right click on that particular specific database connection that we have just created and make a connection with using that SQL Server Explorer, SQL Server Explorer. So we will try to create a new query. So when we say new query, it will generate that particular specific query. It will show me that then we can type in our query here. Okay, again, this is our SQL Server Express, so we can just check that we have the SQL Express, so we can just connect it. And then here you can also see that the database that we have just created, it will appear in that particular specific database list as well. Let's go back to the, so here we can put our query. And now, because we are talking about the database first, it means that we need to create the tables, we need to build a relationship. So I have written down the queries that we need to have. So I just try to, like, I have those queries written down, and I will put that particular specific file as a on the Moodle as well, so that you can just copy paste. So here what we are doing here, let me explain you. So we are creating a students table. In the student table we have a student ID that is of integer type, and that is an identity. Identity, it means that it's a primary key, and it's 1 1 starting from 1 every time it was increment, auto increment file. And that nor null, it means that we need to provide that particular specific student ID. And then we have the last name, first name. These are both string type. The size is 100, or maybe we can say 50, because first name and last name, how long they could be. But okay, let's see it. And then they can be null, because we are saying that null, it means that is a possibility that these two fields can be empty in a simplest form, in a simplest terms. So we have admission day, that is of the date and time data type, and it cannot be null, so we need to provide that. And then we also have we are telling that particular specific student ID is actually a primary key. Okay, and then we are creating the next table, that is a courses. Again, we have course ID, course name, and credit hours. And then we are adding that particular specific enrollments table, in which we also have enrollment ID, enrollment date. Then we have grades, and then we have the course ID, student ID. And then we also have certain key. This is the primary key constraint here. That's a primary key. It is telling that particular specific enrollment ID is a primary key. And these are the foreign key relationship between the enrollments and the course. And the second one is the relationship, foreign key relationship between the enrollments and the student table. So we have created all those tables, and then we also have created some indexes. In the enrollment table, we are creating the index on the course ID and the student ID, so that if we want, so actually I mean, you have already studied databases, so you must know about that. So by default, when we say that enrollment ID is a key, so by default the database management system, DBMS, in this case it is SQL Server, so they create an index value on the primary key that will help to quickly find that particular specific record based on the enrollment ID. But because the student ID and the course ID, and the student ID, they are also very important, and we want to search the enrollments for a specific student or for a specific course, so that's why we also created two new indexes from the course ID and the student ID in the enrollments table, so that we can quickly find out the enrollments for a specific student or for a specific course. So this is the SQL statements that I have already created. So now we can just click that particular specific button to execute that thing. So let's see that if there is a command completed successfully. So how we can find out that they have been completed successfully? I just refresh, right click on that particular specific server, the database connection, and then now you can see that we have created these courses, enrollments, and students table. So this is our database side. So we have created those particular specific tables. We can save that particular specific query, or we can just close it, and we don't want to save because we have executed, it is working, it has done its duty or work, so we don't need to worry about that. So that is our database part. First, what we did, we open our Server Explorer, we create a new database in our SQLExpress database management DBMS system, created a new database, created the tables that we want to connect with, and now we are going to create a new project. So here again, it's a bit tricky. Normally we use that particular specific console application, and in that particular specific console application, we have some issues, so we are not going to use that particular normal console application. Rather than we say console application .NET framework. So please make sure that you have selected a right console application. So console application which specify the .NET framework, and then we say next, and then we say that this is a DBFirst demo. Okay, and then we have the I mean the latest .NET framework that we have here. So we create that particular specific application. So let's recall. We open our Visual Studio. In our SQL, in our Server Explorer, we made a connection, create a database, run the queries, and then create our tables. Okay, so that's what we have done so far. And then we created a project in the Visual Studio, and that should be a console.net framework. So that's what we have done so far. Now what we need to do, we need to open that our Solution Explorer. So let me put it over there, and then I can right click on that particular specific project. So we have two, right on top it is a solution, this is a project within that solution. So in one solution we can have multiple projects. Okay, so we right click on our project and then say we want to add a new item. When you say add a new item, it will open up this dialog, and then from the left panel we are going to select the data, and then here we are going to select the edu.net entity data model. So we are going to add that one, and once we add it, it will start that particular specific wizard that will help us to connect that particular specific uh, demo database and create the entities in our program automatically. Okay, so we can say that EF designer from the database, yes, select that one, and now we need to select the database. So if, as you know, that if we look at in our explorer, I will show you it later on, we have two different connections active. So we have just made it that particular DBFirst demo connection, and then we created a database. And here, remember that we have a DB context class that we have created when we are in the code, and then we say that, so this is actually the name of the class. So we can simply say that DBFirst context. So this is the automatically generate that DB context class. So here it is asking that what specific name should you can select. So instead of having that name, so we can the DBFirst context. Okay, and then it is telling that you which specific entity framework you want to use. You want to use the 6 or you want to use the 5. So of course we will go for the latest one. So we say that 6 is fine. And then here it said, do you want to include the foreign key as a column? Then we also have pluralize. You know, we have the students table, and then it will automatically create a make it singular and then create that particular specific student table rather than students, because student table or student class is actually representing one row. So that's why it is creating. So it will making the plural to the singular, so that we can have that names. So it will change those things. Of course, here we need to select the tables, and again we can see that which specific table, because we want to bring all the tables as an entity in our program. So we will select right on the top tables, and then we click on the finish. So once we click on finish, it will start processing. It will translating all those tables into the entities, classes. It will create the DB context class, and then put all those. So again, here is running this text template, because in the background it is running some text templates, running some commands. So we say yes, we want to continue. We will trust these commands to run on our program. That's fine. Again, I think it will ask us 3 times because we have 3 different tables, so it will create all those. Yes. So it is actually, if you look at that on the right side in that particular Solution Explorer, the files are being created whenever we are saying okay. So it create a new files all the time. Okay. So now it has created that particular specific model, and now it's showing me we have again, look, we have courses, courses. So to make it singular, it have removed the es at the end. Enrollments, so it make it enrollment. Students, it make the student, so it make it singular. But here if we look at that particular specific thing is not right. It should be course. So I just change that particular specific, and remember that this is very important. If you are changing that particular specific model, you need to do it right now, because if you start working with that particular specific model and you do the changes later on, then it will be problematic. Okay, so you do all those changes right now, so we say that yes. Okay, and if we look at that particular specific navigation property, that is also CURS, I don't want, I want to S, and then you say control S. So again, when you say control S, that do you want to, I mean, it want to change, implement those particular specific changes. So if you look at here on the in the Solution Explorer under the model, so you can see COURS.CS. Okay, so when I say click OK, that will be converted into CURSE that we have changed here. So it is running, it is trying to implement those changes, and let's come that particular E here. Yep, so you can see that it's has appeared now, COURSE, and similarly we can see in the enrollment table. In the enrollment table, it has changed that COURS to CUORSE automatically. Now we can have these entities, courses. So we have student entity. In the student entity, we have student IDs, last name, first name, and the database, or admission date. In the courses, we have the course ID, course name, and the I don't want to go there. Where change it. So course ID, we have course name and the credit hours, and then we also have the enrollments for that particular specific. Okay. So remember that we have two string methods and the control method. So I'm just trying to, from our last demo, I'm just copying those particular specific constructors, and the what you can say that we have the constructor. So I just put that particular specific constructor. So here, instead of having the ID, we have the student ID. Okay, then I also took that particular specific two string method that we have overridden here. Okay, so again here we say that thing, and then here again, instead of ID, we have the student ID. Fine. So we have the empty constructor, we have the constructor that we are going to use to add the things in the list, and then later on in our DB context, then we have the toString method in the student. So we say control S so that we can save those changes. Now we come to the course, and then in the course we again have that particular specific we have the empty constructor, so we want to add that constructor which take the ID, course name, and the hours as an input and save those information inside of it. And then similarly we need to have that we need to override that particular specific to string method. So we have course ID, course name, and I mean exactly, I'm just copy pasting from our last thing, and then we say control S because we have done with that. In the enrollment, if you look at that, we have the enrollment ID, we have the enrollment date, then we have grades, course ID, student ID, and then we also have the course and the student objects. Okay, fine. So first of all, I am just trying to create an empty constructor. Okay, and now I will just copy paste the constructor and the customized constructor. So here we have the courses, we have the students. So here, if you look at that, it is as what you can say that we have the enrollment ID, we have initialized it, we have the date, enrollment date, we have initialized it, we have the we have our course and the student, we have initialized them, but we have not initialized the course ID and the student ID. So that's what we can add here. So this dot student ID is equal to s dot student ID. Okay, and then we have, because s is a student object, so from that particular student object we are getting the ID and initializing it here, and then course ID, and that is equal to c dot course ID. Okay, so we have initialized all the elements here. We have created the empty constructor, and now we need to have that particular specific uh, toString method, so that whenever we want to print the enrollment, then we can print it. Here if you look at that, because in this particular specific class we have the course ID and student ID as a property inside the enrollment class. So what we can do, we can simply say that use those two, rather than going into this to course object or the student object, we are using those course ID and the student ID. Fine. So far we have changed our student entity, course entity, and enrollment entity, and then we have seen our model. So let me see, where is our DB context class? So inside our database model 1.context.dff, so actually this is our DB context class, and you can see here it is more or like same. It is the names equal to DB context. Okay, so it is telling that which specific database we need to connect, and then we have the DB set for the courses, DB set for the enrollments, and DB set for the students. That exactly the same. And then we also have that particular specific constructor which is passing the database name to the base class, and this is an additional, what you can say, builder. So actually this is more like coming automatically. So if you look at that, it is very similar to the DB context class that we have created in the last demonstration when we're talking about the DB code first approach to handle the database in the Visual Studio projects. Okay, so we have that particular specific class. Now we come to this particular specific here, and then we can say that we want to create a variable. So we want to create a variable of DB context is equal to new DBFirst. So if you can see that, it automatically show me that particular specific DBFirst context class, and I select that one and enter, and then we have created. So now I'm just going to copy paste the previous what you can say that copy the thing that we have created last time. Okay, so I'm just starting again. I just created a list of the students that is empty at this point, and then we are added our students there, and then we add that particular specific student into our DB context in the students DB set, and then we save the changes, and then after that we are showing that particular specific. So let me say that console dot write right line, and then here we are saying that /n/n, and then we can say that student records /n/n, not /n/n/n. So I'm just putting some few lines so that we can see those things, and then we have the student table. We are trying to get it from the DB context and printing the student table students on our. So let me close it down now so that we can see our code completely. Okay, so we have that one. So again we are doing the same thing, we are not changing anything. I just copy paste that particular specific line so that we can use it later on. So again I'm creating the courses list, and then we are adding the courses inside that particular specifically. Then we are adding that courses list into our DB courses DB set within our DB context, and then save the changes. And then again I'm just trying to instead of student record we have the course record. Okay, and then here we are going to display, accessing the courses within our DB set, and then we are displaying those on the console. And then here because if we look at the enrollments, inside the enrollments, that particular specific constructor receive the object of the student and the course but here remember that we changed that thing, that we have the course ID, so I just remove that particular specific parts, and then it will give me the course object. And so now this is done. Now similarly we need to remove that particular specific part. Now we are passing on only the uh, so let me, so we have the created a list of enrollments, and then we are adding a new enrollment, so we pass on the ID, and then this is like from the course DB set, find the course which has the ID is equal to 1. Okay, so that's what we are asking. And this, similarly we are in the DB context, go into the DB set of the students and find a student object with the ID 1, and that's what we are passing on based on different IDs. Okay, so it will add those 6 enrollments inside our enrollment table, and then at the end we are adding those enrollments, list of enrollments, into our DB set of the enrollments within our DB context, and then saving the changes. Once we have saved the changes, we can again have, this is our enrollments record. Okay, so we have that particular specific enrollment record, we are printing, we are accessing it from the DB set of the enrollments, and then printing those things on the screen. And here we are trying to find out that um, we can say that the variable students, we are creating a query, so enroll in the DB context of enrollment, so it will grab out the enrollments, what you can say that enrollments, all the enrollments, and then it say that where enroll.student ID is equal to 1, so it will look at in the enrollments that, so in simplest term we can say that it will return all the enrollments which contains the student ID is equal to 1, and then we can select that role, we are converting that to list, so that will become a list. So that list we are we say db context.student.find.enrollment, so inside the enrollments we are adding those enrollments in that object, and then we are saving the context. So fine, and then we are printing a few lines, and then maybe we can again have that one. So student 1 enroll, where is one, student 1 enrollment records. Okay, so this is a student 1 enrollment record. So we are trying to find out from the students DB set, we are finding the student with the ID 1, and we are finding its enrollments and then printing on the screen. And at the end, to stop that particular specific string to disappear, because in the .NET framework that particular specific console comes, and once it is finished it will just disappear. So we don't want to disappear, we want to see, so I just add a console.read key, so it will just read one key from our keyboard before it can disappear. Okay, so let's cross our finger and run the program and see that things are working as we have planned. So it will start compiling the program, open that particular specific connection, which we have already actually done. So it should not take that much time like last time, it was when we are running our program for the first time. It need to create the database, it need to make that connection and all those things. So if we look at that, that's much more quicker. So again, let me go back on the top. We have a student record, it will show me all 4 student records and their IDs, last name, first name, and the admission date. And then we have the course records, and then again here it is showing me those course records. Okay, and we can just go a little bit, then we have added the 6 enrollments, it show me those 6 enrollments record, and then we are looking at the enrollments of the student number 1, so it will, that's saying that it is course ID and this is the student ID, and that is the grades right now, because we have just created those enrollments. Later on the teacher can update the grades and then we can see the grades as well, but we have the, so you can see that it says June 10th 2022 at 9:56. So this is the time and date on which that particular specific enrollment has been created. So this way, if I just press any key on my keyboard, that particular specific console screen will disappear from the screen. So this is how we can connect with the DBFirst. So I will just re process. So we first of all we need to come to our database connection. We create a add a new connection. Okay, then we can have the here dot slash SQLExpress, and then we can write the name of the database that you want to create and then click OK. So right now we have already created. So if we look at that, we have this database demo first, and then we can see that one more thing before we can go away. I can see the data in the enrollment. So you can see that particular specific enrollment has been added. And so first we need to create a database connection. Then we create a project within the Visual Studio and make sure that it is a console dot framework. Okay, and dot framework, that's very important. If you are going for the simple console, it creates some when you are trying to add a new thing, and it will say that we have the entity, it say that we don't have those assemblies. So I think this is something which is like the problem with the visuals. I mean, with that particular specific console simple .NET .NET assemblies, so they are not configured properly, but in the .NET framework it is fine. uh, to solve that problem, we need to do some changes in the settings. So right now we stick to the simplest thing, and then how we can move forward. Okay, and once we have created that particular specific project, we can right click on that particular specific project and then say we want to add a new item. And in the new item, we need to select the data edu set and then add, and then you need to follow that particular specific entity framework wizard. So it will connect that. You need to select that particular specific connection that we have created now, and then once we have created, you can select the tables and it will create those entities. Where is my solution explorer? So we have that solution explorer here. So it will create all those entities, DB context classes and the entities, and then we can modify. If we want to modify the model, then you can modify here. That is a design. Okay, so once you have that particular specific model that you want to design, and if you want to make some changes, like if you want to change the name of some um, properties, some columns, or the name of the entity, then you can do here. And then once you press Control S, it will implement those particular specific changes within the what you can say that within that particular specific model, which has an auto generated. It automatically save them, automatically change them. Okay, okay, so this is how we can do it. So I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you very much. Bye.